All right, so when we look at these cross sections, you can see the gray matter is all along the outside. The white matter are all these myelinated axons here running around the inside of it, okay? And so you can see that consistently throughout the entire brain. As we get closer and closer to the cerebellum, we're going to start to see more white matter on the outside and more gray matter on the inside, because as we transition into the spinal cord, it's more of the gray matter on the inside and then the white matter is along the outside, okay? So as we look at this, we could see this white matter, this connection. This is that corpus callosum, that connection between the two halves, the left half and the right half. Now that corpus callosum, as we go down and kind of look at these sections, again, these are our ventricles. These are the lateral ventricles, those spaces. And you can see the space here. You can see it in this section here. Actually, if we line it up the right way or the same way. All of this is those spaces. These are all those ventricles. Now, our ventricles are filled with the choroid plexus. Choroid plexus are these clusters of blood vessels. So if I look in here, believe it or not, you can see, you see all this that I just pulled out? That is the choroid plexus. This is part of that choroid there. Now it's on my pointer, but it's going to be in all of these ventricles. If I give you that back, you're going to see it. It's kind of all the way throughout, because that choroid is everywhere, producing that cerebral spinal fluid. See, I can pull it out here. You got it on both sides. Okay, so these are our lateral ventricles. They're on the left and right hemispheres. That corpus callosum runs between them. Now, what we remember, there is that real thin line. Let me see if I can see it on this section. Let me see your section real quick, being that it's a little thicker. Maybe not. Nope, too thick. Well, actually, you see this is actually a little thicker than it should be, but the septum pellucidum is that band that kind of goes between the two lateral ventricles. So we can kind of see this band here between the two of them. And again, more choroid. You see all this choroid inside of here. You can pull out I can't get it. There's blood vessels in there, trust me. Can you see them? All of that there, okay? So that's all that choroid inside of those ventricles there. And then that corpus callosum. And that corpus callosum is running all the way through, because when we look at the sagittal section, we see it, right? Kind of this big band. This is that corpus callosum, this big band kind of going all the way through. So we make a couple cross sections here, we don't see it, and then all of a sudden we're getting it. And then we're going to get it all the way down, you know, close to that midbrain here, okay? So that's what we can see there. As you keep looking at this, you get into, this is our thalamus here, that those two big globy things that kind of sit on both sides of the cerebrum. Or like the cerebrum kind of encompasses. That was what we have here. You can see those thalami there. The third ventricle runs between the thalami, okay? So that's why you end up seeing this space here between them is that third ventricle. And then as we keep moving down, we've got that little pineal gland kind of sitting here at the back end. And you can see a little bit of it starting here, because that was like, you know, it goes like this as it's running back, that pineal gland. And then we head into the midbrain, where the superior and inferior colliculi are going to be, somewhere down in here, losing it, our cerebellum. So that kind of gives you an idea like of our cross sections there. If we look at a sagittal section, when we look at the sagittal section, we're going to get a different angle of everything, right? As we look at it, this is a pretty good sagittal section. So we have this corpus callosum. This is that lateral ventricle right here. Okay, you can see the space filled with cerebral spine, or the choroid plexus, right? Right there, all of that stuff inside of that space. So here's the corpus callosum. Here, this white band down here is our fornix. If we look on this side, which means that they did do a nice section over here, you can see I can put my probe down here, and this tissue, I don't know if you can see my probe underneath the tissue there, but that's the septum pellucidum. That's that layer of connective tissue that divides the two ventricles out, right? It's a very thin layer. When you do a cross section or a mid-sagittal section like this, you're only going to see it on the one side. So you can see it here. I think on this one, it was a little bit, you can see this space here, but you can see that septum pellucidum like right here in this area right here, right? So that real thin layer of that septum pellucidum right there that kind of covers that ventricle up, okay? So this one is nice because it's a little thicker on both sides. So what we've got there is we look at this, we've got that corpus, or the corpus callosum, our lateral ventricle, the fornix. Who else did a sagittal? Let me see yours real quick. Okay, just to kind of give another view. Again, this is that lateral ventricle. Here's that septum pellucidum that I just poked the pin through, right? But right there, all that septum pellucidum. What's nice on this one that I kind of was not seeing a lot here is this very round thalamus, okay? So this is that thalamus inside there, which means the epithalamus kind of sits on top where we're going to have that pineal gland. Posteriorly, this one has the pineal gland, kind of the whole thing on here, right? Here's that pineal gland right there, okay? Superior and inferior colliculi kind of fall in there, but that's that. So this thalamus, this rounded area here where you can see it a little bit more clearly is a rounded area here. That's our thalamus. Now the third ventricle surrounds it, right? So again, look, this is the third ventricle, this space here. There's more choroid plexus in there. You see that? All this choroid inside there. If I looked here, all this choroid. That's what I want. There we go. Now you can see all that choroid plexus kind of inside there. Again, you have it in the lateral ventricles, you have it inside of the third ventricle. Our thalamus is here. Our hypothalamus would be down in this area. That's where our optic chiasm is. Here's the infundibulum and that pituitary. They kept their pituitary gland on for the most part when they cut it, and so that's what you can see right here. I don't know, did you see that? So we have this pituitary, the infundibulum coming right off of that hypothalamus right here. So you have your thalamus, the hypothalamus, the pineal gland on that epithalamus, this choroid that goes around this lateral or this third ventricle kind of surrounds this whole area. That third ventricle leads down into the cerebral aqueduct, which, you know, you got to kind of look at all sorts of different models here, or sections. You can kind of see that running this way, right? That cerebral aqueduct a little bit there. It's going to kind of come down here into our fourth ventricle. The fourth ventricle is between the pons and the cerebellum, right? This space right in here. Again, more choroid plexus inside there. If I don't tear apart the cerebellum. Got a little bit of it there. Okay. Our midbrain is this section right here. So the superior and inferior colliculi are on that midbrain. Your ocular motor nerve, where's your ocular motor nerve? What happened to it? So here's the midbrain. That's not it. It belonged up there. Let's see. Ocular motor nerve, there you go, see? Right there. So your thalamus, your hypothalamus, this was the optic chiasm here, the infundibulum right underneath it. Here's that ocular motor nerve, cranial nerve number 3, superior and inferior colliculi, right? So that kind of shows that this section, basically here to here, that's our midbrain. Pons kind of bulges out a little bit. This brings us into our pons. Medulla is going to be all the way down here, spinal cord all the way down here. And then look at that. What do we see in there?
The arbor vitae.
The arbor vitae, right. So you have that tree of life, clear as day on there, isn't it? All that white matter on the inside, very pretty looking. All the white matter with the gray matter surrounding it. You can see it on there. Very pretty looking, right? Across the board. That arbor vitae leading down, okay? Any questions? Do we point everything out?
That's awesome.
Yes? We good?
Wait.